Hi, welcome to Truly Southern with Chef Shelby. I am your host, Shelby Cross, executive chef and owner of the Comfort Cravings Experience. Today, we're taking a deep dive into some Southern classics. We're starting off with fried green tomatoes. Then for our entree, we're going to do smothered chicken, dirty rice, and green beans. And we're going to finish it off with some crack cake. I'm excited to help you all tap into your inner chef. And let's get started on those fried green tomatoes. Okay, so today we're starting with some of my favorite Southern classics. And for our entree, we're starting off with fried green tomatoes, which is definitely popular down south. But a lot of people don't know that it actually didn't originate in the South. It was brought over by a few Jews and it originated in like the northwestern parts of the United States. But they are very traditional and home to us down south. And it's a very simple recipe. The good thing about Southern fried classics is you'll start with a few different dips. So today, to bread and coat our green tomatoes, we're gonna use some flour. We're going to use an egg and buttermilk batter, and then we're gonna finish it off in some breadcrumbs before we fry it. So all green tomatoes are unripe red tomatoes. So it's best to get them at your local markets versus the regular grocery store and things like that. But we're simply just gonna cut them up in small pieces. Again, this is an appetizer, something to hold off your friends, your family, your guests while you're preparing the main entree. It's full of flavor, very simple process to do, and we're just gonna get that started. I usually put my butts to the side. Of course, we wanna keep those fresh sides, and they're not cutting. If it gives you a problem cutting, then you can switch out your knives or things like that. But again, it's because they're unripe, so they're a little more soft. Give it a little patience and you'll get there. And they can be as thick as you want them to be. I usually do pretty thick pieces. If you think about fried pickles and things like that, you'll eat a few of them. Again, this is just the entree before the main course, so you don't want to get too full, but also things like that. So once you have your tomatoes ready, remember to get all of your butts out. These are our dipping sauces, and the key thing to remember when you're dipping, you also can do this for boudin balls and things of such like that. You want to make sure you have one wet hand and you have one dry hand. This is very important so it doesn't get too messy and so that you don't mess up the batter. So I'm going to take my tomato first and I'm going to dip it in my flour, and you want to get it good and coated. Then I'm going to take my wet hand and I'm going to transfer it over to the buttermilk and egg wash batter. And then I'm going to switch back to my dry and dip it in the breadcrumbs. And this will be a finished one. You can go ahead and transfer it over to your pan while you produce the rest of them. Okay, so once we get all of our tomatoes battered up, you're ready to get it frying. So over here, I already have my oil warm up on the stove, ready to dip them in. And right now is a simple process. Like I said, very simple recipe, easy to follow and very flavorful and pleasing to the crowd as well. So once you grab your tomatoes, we're gonna transfer them over here to the oil. And we're going to dip them in and allow them to start frying. Of course, you can do the magic test that we all know from the South. Get a little bit of water, not too much because you don't want to mix oil and water, but just throw it in there. Once you hear it sizzle, it's ready to start frying. So now that our oil is ready, you want to have it on a medium heat because you don't want it to overheat. It'll burn the breadcrumbs, but you're going to dip them in there and allow them to start frying. And while that's frying over here, we're going to get started on our homemade remoulade sauce. So I have all of my mixtures over here for us ready. We're starting with some Creole mustard. We also have some mayonnaise and some horseradish. And you can really use the seasonings of your likings, but one that definitely should go in there is some cayenne pepper with a mixture of paprika. I also have some garlic, black pepper, and things like that, and of course onion, Cajun seasoning, and stuff like that. So we're just gonna combine all of that into one bowl. I really did like maybe a tablespoon or so of each. With what we're using, it already has a lot of flavor, so you don't want it to be too overpowering, because we do want to also taste those tomatoes, but you just want something that's going to complement it. Again, what I love about cooking, like, the options are unlimited. You really can't go wrong. If you add a little bit too much of something, you can balance it out. If you don't have enough, you can add more. So we're going to combine all of these into one bowl. Give it a good little mix. Keep an eye out on your tomatoes over there while they're frying. And this is our homemade sauce. Real simple and easy. I want y'all to be able to channel your inner chef. I'm a professional chef, but I didn't go to school. My experience from home cooking, my ancestries, all of that, mother, grandmother, all of that outweighs a few years of school. So I want all of y'all to be able to channel into that. Real simple recipes. You can take it home to your mom. You can cook for your date night, group of friends gathering, whatever it is. Cooking is simple. It's an expression. It is art. So those have been frying. You want them to fry for about 2 minutes on each side. You can do the test, flip them over. If they're not fried enough, you can always dip them back up within the oil. For this size pan, I use about 1.5 cups of oil. Since these tomatoes were smaller, if you do have the large tomatoes, you could probably use about 2 cups. But for me personally, I like to add less oil so that it doesn't overpower it. I don't like my food dripping, coming out of the oil, greasy when you're eating it. So just enough. You want to get it fried, and we're going from there. Now we're ready to plate. Our tomatoes are ready to come out once they're golden and crispy. So if you want to make your plate look just a little fancy, you know, it's all about presentation. You can grab a spoonful of your sauce, put it on a plate, and literally just smear it across. You can add a couple spoonfuls of it. Then we're going to take our tomatoes out. And I mean, it's really up to you. However you feel like you want to do it. I think I might stack them up a little bit. Layer them. Again, these are bite size. You might have the large tomatoes. I mean, the options are limitless. Top it off with a few green onions just to add some color to your plate. If you had a mixer or anything, you could use this sauce, drizzle it a little bit on there, but I like to leave it for free will. If people want the sauce or not, they can drizzle it on there. And I'll just add a few drops with on the top. And we add our dish on the side for that. And these are our fried green tomatoes. So we're gonna get started with our smothered chicken. That's a part of our entree today. And what I love most about smothered chicken is just all of the flavors that is packed within there. We're gonna start off with marinating our chicken, and you cannot be afraid to get dirty when it comes to marinating. So all marinating is you are using an olive oil base, and you are coating your chicken mixed with seasonings, herbs, and things like that. And you're just prepping it. The best way to marinate it is overnight. Get it really packed with the flavor and things like that. But if you're in a rush, then 2 to 4 hours will still give you that good effect. So I use a little bit of olive oil. I do have bigger pieces of chicken, so you can kind of weigh it out. You want to make sure that it just evenly spreads all of your seasonings over your chicken. So I'm going to start with about 2 tablespoons of Cajun Creole seasoning. I have some garlic pepper right here. And then I also have some onion mixed with a few dried spices. It's another Creole mix. You really can't go wrong. Whatever your taste buds are feeling, you can mix within there. But once you get all of that going, you're just gonna grab your chicken and mix it up in there. You can go ahead and get your stove warmed up. Once we marinate the chicken, we're going to sear it on the pan for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. What that's going to do is brown the outside of the skin, which will give it a nice crispy texture, to also go with the coating of the gravy that we make with this afterwards. Whenever you get your chicken good and marinated, the next step is going to be to sear it. So you're going to take a little bit more of your olive oil and you're going to coat your cast iron skillet. You can use a regular skillet, but I love cast irons because they heat up a lot more and it'll really give you that crispy coating on the outside that you need. So go ahead and make sure that the base is coated. You can wiggle it around a little bit to make sure that it's evenly distributed. And what you're going to do is go ahead and take your chicken and throw it on there. You'll hear it start to sizzle. And like I said, no specific time, but a good 2 to 3 minutes will make sure that they're good and seared on both sides. And once you finish with that, we're just going to simply transport it over into our baking dish. And then we'll prep our gravy and add it on there before adding it into the oven. This kind of meal kind of reminds me of home. You know, I grew up Southern comfort foods again. This is what we're focusing on today, but it reminds me of after church, whether I was going home or going to my grandmother's house, we knew we had a good soul food dinner waiting for us. Anything from smothered chicken to fried chicken, you know, mashed potatoes, green beans and things like that. Give you a good full belly, take a good church nap afterwards and get ready before the week. That's kind of how I grew up, and I really want to stick to that tradition even now with my family and in the future when I start my own family. Kind of just bringing those home feelings, love, gathering and people together and things like that. So like I said, after about a good 2 to 3 minutes, this is a bigger piece of chicken, but as you can see, it is starting to brown on one side. So you'll just continue to flip it. If it's taking a little bit longer than usual, then of course just bump your temperature up on the oven and get a good sear on it. You can smell the aroma, hear it sizzling. Cut on some of your favorite tunes. You know, I'm acting like it's Sunday right now. The aromas are going in here and we're doing good. So once that's finished, we're gonna go ahead and transfer it over into the pan and get started working on our gravy. Okay, so now that we've got our chicken prepared and it's in the dish ready to bake, we're going to start on our gravy, which is the most important part. You can't have smothered without gravy. And the best thing about it is the ingredients are cheap. Everyday pantry, flour, olive oil, and it'll be equal parts. So what is important to remember when you're making gravy is that it can burn easily. So you want to make sure that you're in a place in your cooking that you can stand over and watch it and stir it consistently. You're looking for it to be like a copper color, like a penny. And if you like yours a little darker, then we can go for that too. So I'm just gonna get my stove and cast iron warmed up. Best tips to add a little bit more flavor is to use the same cast iron that you just braised your chicken in, and it'll add a little bit more flavor within there for that. So we're gonna start off with a little bit more olive oil, and we're gonna add in our vegetables. At this age, y'all, we cannot be afraid of vegetables. I know growing up, we kind of maybe turned our heads a little bit, but it definitely adds a lot more seasonings, flavor, and things to your dishes. So we're gonna get these heated up and stirred within our cast iron first before we add our olive oil and our flour. So what I love most about Southern foods is a lot of our tradition starts with a lot of bases, whether it's gumbo, whether it's etouffee, Creole cooking. The base is important, and it's real simple. Like I said, everyday ingredients, and just make sure you can add vegetables, you can add different seasonings to your liking and things of that such. You're gonna cook these in the skillet maybe 2 to 3 minutes, making sure you're not burning them, stirring them consistently. And this is just a little trinity. You got green peppers, red peppers, and we also have some onions to bring out the flavor within the gravy base. Now that we've got our onions, bell peppers good and soft, we're gonna go ahead and start the gravy sauce. So that is going to be equal parts olive oil and flour. So we're gonna start off with about 1 cup of each. You can't be too stingy. This depends on how smothered you would like yours. But again, if it's too thick, you can always thin it out. And if it's too thin, you can always make it more thick. So we're just gonna simply start mixing that all in together. It is gonna be a process, I say, to get it to the browning of your liking, that copper that we're really looking for. It might take about 10 minutes. But again, you have to be watchful, keeping your eye on it, stirring it consistently, evenly throughout the pan, because it will turn quick. And like I said, like right now it's very thick. So what we're gonna do is just add more olive oil. And it's literally that simple. The most, I would say, if you're just starting off, if this is your first time making a gravy, then it's just gonna be getting it to the color that you would like. Being patient with it, you know, cooking is therapeutic. We're not in a rush. Sunday dinner, you either wake up early, you're cooking it before, or you just got out of church or wherever you're coming from and you're preparing for the night. So good vibes, kind of just let it guide you. Don't fight against the food. I would say that's really it. You know, cooking is very simple. We don't have to make it hard. Channeling our inner chef. And while this is going, I'm just going to go and wash my hands and prepare to start our sides. Once you get your gravy to that copper brown or however brown you would like your gravy, the last step would be to add a little bit of chicken broth. So what chicken broth does is, one, of course, it adds flavor, but it also thins it out a little bit to really get that nice consistency for the gravy that we're looking for. So you're just gonna continue to mix it until it mixes and blends well together, giving it a few more minutes. Once it's thin to your liking, then we can go ahead and prepare our pan to transfer it over to adding into the chicken. While we're getting that started, we're also going to heat up our pans and go ahead and start our rice for our dirty rice. And then we're also gonna get our green beans started. And today we're gonna go with a garlic and herb green beans. So I'm excited for that. So for rice, it's real simple. I do know a lot of people who told me that they don't know the key to making a great rice. And honestly, it's just making sure that you turn your rice down low and really let it simmer so that the dried rice can absorb the water and it gets moist. If you ever run into an instance to where you feel like it's mushy, let it simmer a little bit more, turn the heat down low, make sure the top is sealed on there. Once it absorbs it, you remove from the heat, mix it up a little bit, and you'll be all good. All right, so now that our gravy is good and prepared, we're gonna grab our baking pan and we're just gonna simmer and pour it on there. Don't worry, once you pour it into the oven, it's going to thin out and get a great layer on there. So make sure that it's just nice and evenly distributed over the chicken. Again, don't worry if it comes out a little thick because it will thin out once it's in the oven. Now, I do have a few big pieces of chicken. So typically you would bake it on about 350, but when I do have those thicker pieces, I do like to turn it up a little bit to about 365, just to cut down on cooking time. It'll still keep it moist, so don't worry about your chicken drying out and things like that. But yeah, that's a good temperature that we're gonna put it on. And I'm also gonna get my rice started. So for this rice, we're gonna use 2 cups part of water, and we're gonna get that boiling over here. And once we add our rice in, it's just gonna be 1 cup of rice. Real simple. We're also gonna get our cast iron skillet going to start our ground turkey. I like ground turkey specifically because it does have more protein. It's more lean. And if you know how to season it correctly, you get a lot more flavor. If you do like beef, you can use regular ground beef and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm getting these two started so I can start cooking my meat and my green beans. For our green beans today, it's a simple thing. You start off with about 4 tablespoons of butter. And you're gonna get that melted on that cast iron skillet once that's going. So we have our rice water boiling in the back, and we're gonna get started on our green beans. So we added 4 tablespoons of butter, and what you're gonna do is go ahead and add a handful of green beans into that pot. Go ahead and get them covered, and we're just gonna let those simmer. To start with our dirty rice, the meat most importantly, we're gonna start sauteing our vegetables. So we're gonna grab maybe 2 tablespoons to 3 of olive oil. We're gonna use our Trinity mix, which we have some celery. Grab a handful of that. We also have some onions, a handful of that. And then we're also gonna grab our green bell peppers, about a handful of that. And we're gonna get those started on there as well. Cook them for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and add our ground turkey. Okay, so once we have these vegetables and stuff over here going, you're ready to go ahead and add your ground turkey to the mix. And now you're just adding in that extra flavor. Cooking it into the meat. You can add a little bit of your favorite seasonings. I like some garlic and herb seasoning. Maybe just like a pinch of each. A little Creole seasoning, black pepper, salt, things like that to really get it going. And when you're ready for your next step in your green beans, you're simply going to add your favorite seasoning. So today we're doing the garlic and herb. I'm going to do about 2 pinches of that. And to finish it off, we're going to pour about half a cup of water in there. And that's just to get it sizzling, to really let that seasoning get up in there. Stir it up. If it's too high, of course, you can always just turn down your stove. And you're gonna let that cook for about 4 to 6 minutes. All right, so now that we have our rice ready, we're going to go ahead and pour our cooked rice into our pot with our our ground turkey. And we're gonna go ahead and just give it a good mix. So you already have the meat mixed in with all of your peppers, your green onions, celery, and things like that. And really the meat and seasoning is what makes it dirty. You can add some paprika to it to give it a little bit of color if you need so. You can add some parsley. As you know, we like to all garnish our food with parsley, but it does give it that extra dirty look, things like that. Me personally, I like it pure. You don't need all that. If you put enough seasoning and things like that, you'll be just fine. And this is our finished product for the rice. We're gonna check on the chicken real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm gonna go and check on our chicken. It should be ready now. It's been in the oven for about 40 minutes, again, because we did have a few thicker pieces. I wanted to make sure that those big pieces of meat are cooked all the way through. Another thing that you can do is make some slices with a knife throughout them to make sure that it's really getting all that meat in. So to start our plating off, I'm gonna start with the rice, and I have a ramekin dish right here. This just gives it a little extra detail when you're plating it. If you pour it in here and compact it, it'll give it a nice little shape when you flip it onto the plate. So we're gonna take it, grab our plate, and go like so. Now you have a nice little shape. We are going to then grab some of our green beans, place it right next to the rice. If you want to layer it, you can, just to give it a little more of the aesthetic. I like to place mine around it. just so it can kind of outline the plate a little bit more. And to finish off, of course, we're gonna grab a few of our chicken pieces and a little extra gravy. Just like so. And you can grab your spoon and drizzle a little bit more gravy on there. All right, and there you have it. Today we have our smothered chicken with dirty rice and some garlic and herb green beans. For our dessert today, we made a crack cake, and what makes it called crack cake is the addiction that it gives you. We use a yellow box mix, and we added brown sugar, white sugar, a little bit of cinnamon, vanilla, and of course the key ingredient is Moscato. So what I'm doing is just poking a few holes at the top of the cake. This will help the icing to seep into there once I pour it on. And we are going to take our glaze, which is sugar, butter, and a little bit more Moscato. Don't worry, we didn't use a lot, but it does make it definitely extra moist, literally melts within your mouth. One of my favorite desserts. You don't have to be an expert baker or anything. Like I said, we use regular box mix and added a little razzle dazzle to give it the extra flavor. So now I'm going to take my knife, get us a good hefty slice, and this will be the seal of all deals at the end of this wonderful meal that we made today to top off your soul food Sunday. Thank you for joining us today, where we made fried and green tomatoes. We did smothered chicken, dirty rice, and a sauteed green beans. And to finish it off with a nice moist crack cake. My name is Chef Shelby again. You can find me on Instagram at The Comfort Cravings Experience. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode where we dive into some more Southern classics.